James is having a yam with some maple Greek yogurt and walnuts, salad, pierogies, that's some pizza pierogies fried up with spinach, red bell pepper, red onions, celery, and mushrooms, and a dollop of avocado. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's
James is going to
healthy
talk
and,
about this.
Attractive looking.
And I'm going to talk about the two at the bottom, but he'll talk about bad banks also. So I guess, James, you may as well get started, because you're going to be the one talking about that stuff.
Oh, okay. I want to start on the food.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Anyway, so you listened to the Rachmaninoff.
Yeah, it was excellent.
Yeah, so I wanted to get Pauline's opinion too. It's really good. That was her idea to get this out. And so Rachmaninoff's Letters and Other Reminiscences, spoken by Sir John Gielgud. I don't know if he's alive. He's probably long dead. But I think this was put out in 1998. And, oh yeah, then it was repackaged in 2007. So it's Warner Electra Asylum put it out. WEA, I don't know, WEA. Anyway, running time, 102 minutes. It's a respectable running time. Doesn't run too long. Of course, I could have listened to this for a long time.
Yeah,
it could have been a lot longer.
But they didn't just put the music in. They also put a lot of history and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I could have heard more music, actually. I don't think they play complete pieces. There might have been complete parts of, like, movements or stuff like that. Anyway, I love the conductor. He had a really scruffy look. He looked like a wild man. I figured he was Russian, and sure enough he was. Valery Gergiev. Pardon my mispronunciation. And so there was one opera, I think, at least one. And so on and so forth. The musicians seemed to pretty awesome. And yeah, like the two piano players, there were at least two very good. The conductor, like I say, pretty darn good. And they had one of Rachmaninoff's descendants, Alexander, and grandson, and they were showing him around and stuff like that. Kind of like I don't think Rachmaninoff was very political, but it was kind of like a political life in the sense that his life was shaped by politics. So he just escaped the Russian Revolution, or escaped the bad effects of it. We're still going through the bad effects of all it. Russia is just we'll call it a gong show, but it's a different kind of show. The way it's worked out. Beautiful country, empire really. It's a super empire, stunning. People are going around saying it has a right to be defended and all that sort of stuff, to be defended from the Germans. It's sitting on, it's a prison of nations. It has been, it has always been for a while. It was imprisoned by the Tatars, doing the evil work of the Mongols way back when. But, at any rate, he escapes the Russian Revolution. He is, within short order, I think he gets out around Christmas time into Sweden around Christmas time, 1917. And within short order, he hears, I guess, when he makes it to Sweden, that his house has been plundered, and I think it was destroyed. I think burned down. So his grandson was being toured around a reconstruction, and the poor old Russians. You see, Rachmaninoff looks as though he came from aristocratic blood or something like that. There's a big fancy house that he lived in when he was young. He got out in 1917, born 1873, so he was something like 44 years when he got out. At any rate, the Russians didn't get around the Soviets, so-called Soviets. They didn't believe in Soviets. Soviets were voting institutions. They were little workers' councils and stuff like that, where they voted on things democratically. The commies took those things over. They were not in the least interested in democracy, not even in the long run, really. They talked. It wasn't even a good game, but they talked a game. At any rate, apparently in Gorbachev's time they got around to reconstructing this house. So, like something like 70 years later, almost after it was burned down. Shameful. I don't think they liked Rachmaninoff very much because he kind of made money out in the West, places like New York and so on and so forth. Doing, apparently for about 20 years, doing concerts, so on and so forth. He apparently was a very good piano player. So he escaped from the commies in 1917, and then after a stint in New York and maybe other places in the United States, but I think it was maybe in New York. He went back to Europe. I think it was Paris for a while, and then a place called Senna. I'm not sure where it was. I couldn't quite catch it. But maybe in Italy or Switzerland. It seemed to be mountainous. But at any rate, the Nazis, he escaped the Nazis almost like just in time delivery. So again, politics kind of shaped where he was at. I think he went back to the United States. He died in the United States. I knew it was going to be a somewhat truncated existence. Why? Because they had several pictures of him. I think even films. He was well enough known that there were lots of home movies and stuff like that. He seemed to have a cigarette in his fingers, more than would have been healthy. And so I was figuring he would have been lucky to make it to 70. And sure enough, he died when he was about 69 or something like that. Died in Los Angeles, but buried in New York, I think, somewhere, or in the general region of New York, and stuff like that. So a political life. It shouldn't have had to have been political, but the commies and the Nazis took care of that. Anyway, this comes highly recommended. Of course, don't buy this sort of stuff, but get it from your library, or I don't know if I guess you can get it on Netflix or something like that. I shouldn't even be advertising Netflix, but one of those things where you can rent. There's a Canadian one, I think, where you can rent films, stuff like that. So that comes highly recommended. It's very good. It was, not all the music was relaxing, but the ultimate, I mean, he did some upbeat kind of things and so on and so forth, but the overall effect was relaxing. When you can get that kind of stuff nowadays in this era of craziness, the political, and, well, like musical, this is a wonderful antidote to the effects of that awful, well, it was a fairly good series, actually, on the origins of rap. It was bad music. It wasn't even music, really. Okay, so Bad Banks. Are you ready to pay? What, in terms of time is money? This is a good snooze fest, basically. So, are you willing to pay your time? Your time is worth a lot. So, if you want a snooze fest, this is good. But
well, the thing is it's in German. So you have to read subtitles. Or James was using it, he was saying, so that he could better understand hearing German.
Yeah, it goes by too fast. For me, I've taken 4 layers of German. And done pretty well and all that sort of stuff. I gotta admit, I have a tin ear for languages. And so it all goes by so fast. I have to get people to slow things down. I actually had an easier time hearing the Russian.
Really?
I've only taken one course in Russian.
Huh.
German goes by pretty fast. Now, it might have been because people were speaking more slowly for the Russian and so on and so forth. Now, I have an easier time with German than I have with French. French is spoken. You know, like I can read both those languages pretty well. I can kind of read Russian. Okay, so now it's so this comes highly not recommended. Like again, I slept through a lot of it. Is that my fault? Like I saw enough to know what was going on. I'll be watching more. I watched maybe 2 installments. I think maybe 3. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Okay, so I have watched this movie before, and it does say on the top of it, it says the darkest chapter in the Conjuring universe, and so. This movie, The Nun, is about a demon nun, and, a demon that looks like a nun, I suppose. So, I watched it this time while writing poetry, and last time I probably watched it while cooking. So, honestly, this time I saw a lot of bits that I hadn't seen the first time I watched it. And if I watch it again, I'll probably see a lot of bits that I haven't seen this time. The demon stuff, sure, that scares me, but the whole Catholic Church in horror movies, it's kind of lost on me.
Well, do you think it's kind of unfair though? Or maybe Catholics are really into that stuff. I don't know.
I don't know. I can't think of I don't think my French side of the family is like that.
Demon haunted or whatever.
No.
It's funny how you don't get other religions in horror movies. Like you don't get Hinduism, do you?
Yeah.
You don't get Buddhism.
You really
don't. Get Islam.
There's a whole lot of Catholic horror movies. I don't know why. Anyway.
Protestant horror movies just put you to sleep.
And this movie, Killer Weekend, has got to be the bottom of any stack. It's really bad. Honestly, the acting in this, it was like they showed pretty women at the start who were setting up their dating profile or whatever, right? And most of them were saying, "Oh, I'm an actress and this, and I want to." So they're setting themselves on this site that caters to pretty young women who want to find wealthy, older men to take care of them, right? And so it's...
Did they use the term sugar daddies?
Yes. But it's not technically a prostitution sort of thing, but it's pretty much understood, when women are taken care of, and they'll take care of in return, right? So, anyway, the acting was so bad that I almost believed that these were failed actresses and stuff that were featured in the movie. And I mean, such failures that not even porn would take them, honestly. This is some bad acting in this. Really, really bad acting. I mean, just because you are pretty and you don't have any skills whatsoever besides doing hair and makeup, that doesn't make you an actress. And wow, this was incredibly bad. This movie was stunningly bad. I can't believe I made it to the end of this movie. The story would have been interesting enough had they actually got some good actors. Then and a good director, they needed everything to be better. But the story was decent. Had they gotten everyone else to be replaced in the making of this picture. So maybe somebody else will redo this sometime. And do it right. I'm not sure. So James, it looks like you're going to talk about philosophy.
Let's talk philosophy. I had one song that the chorus started that.
Oh.
It was called Bob 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 Bob's and Love. But it's a different.
You have about 15 minutes. You have quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Anyway, I threatened you guys with reviewing this a while back, and that should have scared you away, I suppose, from this. From Pauline's program. It's not called a podcast, right?
No, because that was just
the audio. Yeah. Anyway, a historical introduction to philosophy. I actually want to look at this. Classical philosophy. I just piled it below this other one, bigger. So I figured the stacking would be a little more stable. Classics of Philosophy, Volume 2, Modern and Contemporary. So, modern, according to, Louis P. Hodgman. Poynham. Not sure how he pronounces or mispronounces his name. It might be Louis P. Hodgman. I was reading a book this morning where there were several references to a Podgman, and I suspect it was this actual book. They were just saying Podgman, page, whatever. It was within the body of the stuff. So this starts with René Descartes. Yeah, that's right. I think it was on the philosophy. I have something like the philosophy of mind that I was reading this morning. A theory of knowledge, really. Epistemology, to translate from real language to philosophical kind of language. Anyway, this is a pretty good little, well, it's not that little. How many pages? 700 pages? Even more than that. The state. So it's obviously a textbook, a university textbook. And I'm not sure whether it'd be introductory. Stuff like this should be introductory when you take religious studies, at least here at the University of Lethbridge. We're not at the University of Lethbridge, but here in Lethbridge at the university. I think the general practice is not to give you any actual. There'll be some little snippets of text, foundational documents, but basically it's a some professor's interpretation of things. And when I study Hinduism, I want to spend a substantial time, even introductory, and their introductory is second year and stuff. The introductory course in religious studies is just, I gather, just one course. Religious studies in general. So it's a second year, I think, all the introductions to a specific religion. And, you really should read substantial parts of the Bhagavad Gita, or the Ramayana, the Mahabharata is basically the thing that contains the Bhagavad Gita. But a few things, and not just like in passing. Like, you should really study the things. If you're studying Islam, you should, instead of getting an apologia or an apology for Islam, you should actually get you should study the Quran. You should spend maybe half the course studying the Quran. Not the beginning, but what's going on. When you're studying Confucianism, you should look at let's say the analects, Confucius analects, maybe a little bit of Meng's.
No, I didn't say you could go out.
You want to come out here and hold forth? This is Opie here, in case you can see him. Do you want to ramp up here, Ope, so people
Well,
can
you
see
can come
you at
up
home?
here.
You
But I
wanna
don't
jump up
want you
there, Dan?
barking. That's why I didn't want you up.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Sometimes he can bark a lot. This is Opie, folks at home. I don't know if he was named after the
Coyote.
character played by Ron Howard when he was Ronnie Howard on the Andy Griffith Show back in the 50s and maybe early 60s and stuff like that. So Opie's got very large ears for his size. They're not quite rabbit ears, but he reminds me a bit of a rabbit. He's kind of white like a rabbit and stuff like that. Can you say hi to the people at home? You can, but please don't, okay?
Yeah, just
Or at least
try to be
don't
quiet.
bark. Yeah, he's kind of scared here or something like that.
Maybe cold.
Maybe he's cold.
Doesn't
It's a
have
little
coat on.
cool out here. So he's a little
Did you
thin.
want
He's got, it's not male pattern baldness, but he's got a little baldness down here
Yeah. It's
on his chest and stuff like that. And I
doesn't
think
have a whole lot of hair.
Chihuahuas' coats are quite thin. Were you saying they only have single coats instead of double coats or something like that? But Opie can be a very good boy. He can be a not so good boy, but generally he's a very good boy. And he's quite a smart boy. He's learned a few tricks as he's gotten older. Anyway, so this starts with René Descartes, Meditations on First Philosophy. One of the things that impresses me, it's not a long selection of his work, but it's actually, they claim it's a complete translation of Meditations on First Philosophy.
Oh, are you going back in? You want to go back in? Yeah, it's not as
So,
exciting as you thought it'd be, eh?
There are some things like when they come to Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, 3 works: Discourse on Metaphysics, the Monadology, and Theodicy. So that's called abridgment of the argument reduced to syllogistic form. Those are complete work. They're, again, quite short, but what the hey. Now, most of the things like John Locke's thing is a selection from an essay concerning human understanding, which, as I recall, is not that lengthy. Thomas Hobbes' selection from Leviathan, which is hundreds of pages. So it's just a selection. It looks as though it's a fairly substantial selection, maybe almost like 40 pages. But this is the way I believe philosophy should be taught. In other words, you look at the actual things, actual philosophical writings, not crib kind of introductions. All of John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism. David Hume, the entire an inquiry concerning human understanding. And then also for him, dialogues concerning natural religion. This, if you're going to get a text or something like that, and it's not, you won't have much choice. I do recommend that you get told a text for a course. But if you're not taking a course or whatever, this still comes recommended. I think it would be a good introduction to philosophy or stuff like that. Karl Marx, their selections, like the German ideology is quite extensive, so it's just a few pages actually from that. And economic and philosophical manuscripts, fairly substantial. I actually have part of the German ideology in the original German. I've got the economic and philosophical manuscripts. And yeah, I actually do have the German ideology, as I recall, translated into English. So all of Friedrich Nietzsche selections are selections. They're selections of actual pieces and stuff like that. But at any rate, you got, there are not a lot of philosophers recommend or selected here. It's all told 43 minus 15, what does that come out to? 28? 28 philosophers represented. I think there are 14 in the first of this series, which would be, I suspect they title it Ancient and medieval philosophy. It's, I just want to check to see, I think it's all Western. So sorry, I'm just taking a little time here, but this is a Sunday, so time's not money for you, although you might be. Even W.K. Clifford, what was his name? William? Something like that. Yeah, it all seems to be Western. So, yeah, don't. It's classics of philosophy, but it's Western philosophy. And that doesn't quite count for me. I don't believe in that. I believe in covering all world philosophy. If you're going to do stuff like that. I guess they don't say the classics of philosophy, but they should say Western philosophy. So again, it looks as though Poyman and Podgman. I was reading a fairly. I mean, it was an introductory book, but an introductory book on epistemology, and there were several references to Poyman and Podgman. It might have been this book. I don't know. Maybe something else. Anyway, one way or another, he's a name kind of player in philosophy. That doesn't make him a great guy, much less a great thinker, or a great thinker, much less a great guy. So, here we've got Peter A. Morrison is Associate Professor of Philosophy in the Humanities Department at Mount Royal University. It finally became a university. It used to be a college when I was a kid, and for the longest time after I was a kid. Calgary, Alberta. So this is a local product. And when was it published? I don't know where he's at now. This is put out in 2010. Might still be there. Could be other places as well. So this is this has, does this have primary? Yeah, this has primary readings as well, which again, what I believe in. And the reason why I'm checking up is because I finished this so long ago. 24th of June, 2020. Yeah, 2020, so it's 3 years ago. But, so it's got some introductions, and perhaps that's a good idea, little introductions, things that orient you. So it's got...
oh, there he is.
Kind of like...
in front of the camera. I hope you can see him.
There you go.
That's the red-breasted nuthatch.
Yeah, he's been hanging around. What
yeah.
A character, or she's been hanging around. So this has got a historical background and recent theories of mind, then functionalism, and part 3, contemporary. Under historical background, you got Plato, the soul and the forms, Aristotle, naturalizing, and so then the scientific revolution. It just skips medieval stuff. What is that going? This background, going from Aristotle. He died, I think, a year or two after Alexander the Great. So maybe 323 BC, 322 BC. And then you jump all the way to Galilei. And I think he died maybe somewhere around 1635. Well, okay. Born in the latter half of the 1500s AD. So there's a huge jump. I think the fellow was saying, I